The Senate voted early on Friday to end a partial government shutdown that has caused massive lines at airport security checkpoints across the country. But senators did not resolve a dispute over immigration enforcement that prompted the 6-week standoff in the first place. The legislation does, however, restore funding for most of the Department of Homeland Security, including TSA officers who have worked without pay since mid-February. Many of them have called in sick or resigned, causing hours of delays for frustrated air travelers and many missed flights. Passengers in Atlanta, for example, were told to expect wait times of up to 4 hours. Here's Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer.
This long overdue agreement funds TSA, the Coast Guard, FEMA, CISA, strengthens security at the border and at ports of entry, and keeps Americans safe. This could have been accomplished weeks ago if Republicans hadn't stood in the way.
Democrats had blocked DHS funding after federal agents shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens in Minneapolis, using what little leverage they have in Washington to try to impose restraints on Trump's immigration crackdown. Now, Republicans are expected to try to secure funding on their own through a cumbersome procedure. Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
We are here because, thanks to Democrats' determined refusal to reach an agreement, there will be no Homeland Security funding bill this year. Instead, just a few minutes ago, Republicans funded the Department of Homeland Security piecemeal. It's not the way to fund the department, Mr. President. But we are out of time for the critical responsibilities and tens of thousands of workers currently going without pay.
The Republican-controlled House of Representatives must also pass the bill before Trump can sign it into law.
This gambit that was done last night is a joke. We are very grateful to have a strong commander-in-chief in the White House who has taken real leadership. President Trump has already ordered by executive order that TSA agents will be paid. But what we are going to present and what we're going to vote on this floor, our Rules Committee is working through this right now. We're going to put a clean, simple, continuing resolution that will go until May 22nd. It's just a number of weeks to allow for all those who sacrificially serve the country and protect other Americans. All these agencies, 10 agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, will continue at their current funding levels to make sure that they are protected.
It's a living hell. I can't wish this on my worst enemy. You feel like you're living a different life than everyone else around you.
Yeah, it's very difficult to plan about the future because I cannot build my career, I cannot build my future, I cannot plan even for it. And despite all the hard working that I'm done till now, this policy is some sort of obstacle regarding my future plans.
I looked up, challenges to this, and there were some lawsuits being filed, and I thought I would file one. But I think it's important to know that people are fighting back and that this isn't right. According to the lawsuit, this is against even American immigration law.
Yeah, it's financially also impact a lot because we filed for the lawsuit, we filed for the 485 application for the green card, we filed for the work authorization. We paid for all of these applications and also advance parole. All of them right now is in hold.
I have a very young niece that I would love to watch grow up and have her know who I am and know her uncle, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to see her. It's heartbreaking and it's so unfair.
The last time that I visit my family was, I think, around 4 years ago, and as I mentioned, it's so difficult and so risky to right now go outside the US. It's quite sad to judge people only based on the place that they're born rather than considering the contribution in the society.
You know, I've been here for such a long time. I wouldn't consider myself a security threat in any way. I'm just an engineer that likes hiking, cooking, and Game of Thrones.
MAGA wants strength and they want victory. They want success. And that's what we have. And we have been very, very successful. You know, when I went into Venezuela, I said, because I campaigned on the fact peace through strength, you wouldn't have to use. I built this great military. I said, you'll never have to use it. But sometimes you have to use it. And Cuba's next, by the way. But pretend I didn't say that, please. Pretend I didn't say that. Please, 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 media, please disregard that statement. Thank you very much. Cuba's next. So despite...
A U.S. judge has temporarily blocked the Pentagon from blacklisting AI company Anthropic. Thursday's ruling marks the latest turn in the startup's dispute with the military over AI use on the battlefield. Anthropic sued in California federal court after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth labeled the company a national security supply chain risk. Washington can apply that label to companies that expose military systems to potential infiltration or sabotage by adversaries. The AI startup argued that Hegseth overstepped his authority with the designation. It also said the government was retaliating against the company for its views on AI safety, violating its First Amendment rights. The designation followed Anthropic's refusal to allow its AI system Claude to be used for domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons. As a result, the company was blocked from certain military contracts. Executives say the decision could cost billions in business and reputational damage. Its designation was the first time a U.S. company has been publicly designated a supply chain risk. U.S. District Judge Rita Lynn agreed with the firm. She said the administration's actions appeared aimed at punishing the company rather than protecting national security. The decision will take effect in 7 days to allow time for an appeal. Anthropic welcomed the ruling and said its focus remains on safe and reliable AI. A separate lawsuit over another Pentagon designation is still pending in Washington.
U.S. consumer sentiment slipped to a 3-month low in March as the war in the Middle East boosted oil prices and unleashed volatility on financial markets. The University of Michigan's surveys of consumers said Friday that the final reading of its monthly sentiment survey dropped to its lowest level since December, reflecting consumers' concerns about the economy. Oil prices have soared since the U.S. and Israel launched attacks against Iran, and gasoline prices have jumped $1 to $3.98 per gallon, according to data from AAA. Surging oil prices have sparked a stock market sell-off, which economy's FedWatch Group. U.S. stocks closed sharply lower on Friday, with the Dow dropping about 1.75% to confirm it is in correction territory, the S&P 500 shedding 1.2%, and the Nasdaq plummeting more than 2%. All three indexes suffered their fifth straight weekly decline, the longest such streak in nearly 4 years. Friday's sell-off came a day after the Nasdaq confirmed it was in correction territory, which followed the small-cap Russell 2000's correction 1 week ago. Markets on Friday took little solace from President Donald Trump's announcement that he gave Iran another 10 days to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face the destruction of its energy plants. This came after Iran rejected his proposals to end the war he launched in tandem with Israel. Alexander Morris is CEO and Chief Investment Officer at FM Investments.
Investors are now feeling what happens when war breaks out and the economic prosperity that we've enjoyed starts to be questioned. We have to put this in context with history. It's normal throughout the course of any year. We see a correction of 10% for a period of time. But I think in general, equity markets feel not so great. Bond markets feel not so great. But that's really symptom. That's not actual disease. That's really a byproduct of most investors focusing on the price of oil and becoming armchair geopoliticians, less so than the traders they used to be. If we give this some time, in a few weeks, we probably see this work itself out.
Megacaps were the biggest drag on the S&P 500, with Nvidia down more than 2% as the biggest weight, while Amazon dropped 4%. Software shares also came under renewed selling pressure, with the S&P 500 Software and Services Index closing at its lowest level since November 6, 2023. Among other movers, cruise operator Carnival slumped more than 4% after cutting its annual adjusted profit forecast. Rival Norwegian Cruise Line tumbled nearly 7%. Meanwhile, money market participants who are pricing in 2 rate cuts from
gigs as he can. That is to fund his other preoccupation, day trading.
저는 이제 계좌를 2개로 나눠서 운영하고 있는데 하나는
I have 2 trading accounts. One to make seed money to buy a property one day, and the other is for a more aggressive investing to hopefully achieve financial independence and retire early sooner than later.
불려가지고 경제적인 자유를 누릴 수 있는 그런 계좌 2 종류로 나눠서 운영을 하고 있습니다.
Kim says he's unfazed by this month's volatility, with stocks seesawing wildly amid the war in the Middle East. And he is far from alone. South Korea's retail investors are known locally as ants, individually small but collectively mighty, and they have turbocharged a world-beating doubling in the country's benchmark Kospi index over 6 months. It rallied to an all-time peak on Feb. Used this month's sell-off to buy more stocks at a discount.
아무래도 가장 큰 단어는 그냥
The biggest keyword here, I think, is uncertainty. I am in a situation filled with uncertainty and risk where I don't know when my employment might end, when my paychecks could stop, or how much financial support my child will require, if I have one. Some analysts caution against over-enthusiasm amid the geopolitical uncertainty. Xia Song-young of Pirae Asset Securities says if the war drags on, the economy will inevitably face significant disruption.
South Korea is very dependent on exports, making it inherently sensitive to external factors. So if the global economy contracts, South Korea's exports will fall, leading to a fall in corporate profits and, naturally, stock prices as well.
On Friday morning, the Kospi was down another 3%, but that probably didn't worry the ants.
Mexican officials said Thursday that an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico was due to natural causes and an unknown petroleum tanker. Navy Secretary Raimundo Morales said satellite images showed a slick off the coast, which could have been caused by any of 13 vessels that passed through. 4 of those vessels are being inspected by the Navy. Mexico has requested international cooperation to monitor the remaining 9 that have left its waters. Morales says natural seabed oil seepage also contributed.
These are natural oil seeps that emit all year round. However, in this last month, it has intensified. We need to evaluate what is happening, whether the natural emission has increased, or if there is a structural failure on some platform. We will only determine this by verifying on site. That's why we already have underwater drones and divers checking the entire installation.
Authorities, along with Mexico's state energy company Pemex, have deployed marine barriers to contain the spill. Morales said Pemex is also conducting underwater checks to rule out oil rig damage. Though the spill has affected beach health and marine life in Mexico's southern states, Environment Secretary Alicia Barcena said the situation was under control.
There are 7 areas that have been monitored where some oil has washed ashore, but they have already been cleaned. We are really working together with all the institutions present here. But for the moment, I think we don't have severe damage.
Afghan refugees in Pakistan headed to the border on Thursday, taking the chance to go home. It came as Pakistan temporarily reopened a border crossing, allowing hundreds to return to Afghanistan. The passage at Torkham had been closed for nearly a month, following recent clashes between the two countries. Trade at the main border points has also been suspended since Pakistan launched airstrikes in October. One refugee said they were enduring hardship while waiting for the border to open, after being stranded for more than a month. Another said he was frustrated by delays in reopening the border. Pakistan's foreign ministry said Thursday the military had resumed operations against Afghanistan after a brief pause. That dashed hopes for a lasting ceasefire. The two countries saw their worst fighting in years last month, with heavy losses on both sides. Pakistan has hosted more than 2 million Afghan refugees for decades, many fleeing repeated wars at home. Islamabad now wants all Afghan nationals to leave, except those with valid visas. It says some have been involved in militant attacks and other crimes inside Pakistan. A female employee at a Pokemon merchandise store was stabbed to death inside a busy Tokyo shopping complex on Thursday evening. The woman in her 20s was stabbed in the neck, according to Tokyo police. Local media reports said the attacker, a man also in his 20s, was wielding knives in both hands and later stabbed himself. Both the woman and the attacker were pronounced dead at a hospital within an hour. The store was packed with customers, including children and foreign tourists, when the incident occurred. A witness said she saw two employees in the bathroom washing blood off their hands. News reports say a person thought to be the woman killed in the attack had made complaints to police over a stalker. Strict gun laws in Japan mean knife attacks are a more common form of public violence, with several stabbings on trains and at stations in recent years.
India has millions of newly affluent consumers who want to spend, but not enough luxury stores in which to do it. Top brands are struggling to expand amid a severe shortage of high-quality retail space. The country has 3 luxury malls, one in Mumbai, owned by the Reliance conglomerate, and 2 in New Delhi, owned by real estate developer DLF. Here's DLF's head of luxury malls, Saurabh Barara.
So I think that young, rich population in India is growing, and that's where the real market is. Most of these people actually travel abroad to buy those luxury products. They're waiting for something to open up in India, for new brands to come into India so that they have easy access to those brands in developments around the city.
India ranks 4th globally in the number of individuals with $100 million, behind the US, China and Japan, according to Knight Frank's Wealth Report 2025. It has nearly 1.5 billion people, the largest population in the world, and economic growth of more than 6%, but far less mall space than China or the US, says property consultancy Anarok.
For Delhi itself, I think there could be more, considering the distances between, places. I think you could use more locations.
But developers need to make sure any new malls are leased out by the right brands. Luxury consultant Sheetal Jain says that's to ensure a return on their investment.
It is a challenging thing for both brands and developers. So if you look from the lens of the brands, as we know the rentals are too high. And at the same time for the developers also it is very challenging that how do they get the right brands, how do they get, if they have created, how do they get that money?
DLF is planning to double the leasable space of Emporio Mall by the end of 2028. Brands are expanding. Louis Vuitton and Bulgari are enlarging their stores, while Gucci, Chanel and Dior have doubled their footprint over the past 2 years. And Barara says he knows of 15 top brands ready to enter India tomorrow if the space was available.
Shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, which normally carries about 1/5 of the world's crude oil and LNG supply. $375 million is how much Meta was ordered to pay in the US state of New Mexico. Jurors found the tech giant broke state law by misleading users about how safe Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp are for children. Meta said it strongly disagreed with the verdict and planned to appeal. It all comes as tech companies face more pressure over child and teen safety. Around 16% was how far shares in K-pop agency Hybe tumbled. Investors sold off after it posted a weaker than expected turnout at the comeback concert for supergroup BTS in Seoul. City authorities had projected as many as 260,000 people to arrive to be part of the crowd outside.